and I'm chairman of the Colorado State Board of Education, former U.S. Congressman on the Education Committee, and former state senator, and was vice chairman of the Colorado Senate Education Committee.
You know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So how long have you been the chairman of the Board of Education?
About 2 months.
Okay. And I'm more curiosity, but just also background. How did you get that role? Is it elected? Is it appointed?
Yeah, it's elected. No, it's elected position. I ended up on the board in 2000, into 2005. So I was sworn in January 2006, and I was appointed to a vacancy in an unexpired term for 1 year. And in 2006, I was on the ballot in the 4th congressional district. There's 7 board members from one from each congressional district. And I represent the 4th congressional district, which was the constituency I used to represent in the Congress. So I got elected in 2006, so I'm in second year, heading into the 3rd year now of my 6-year term. And I was vice chairman for the first 2 years, and now I'm chairman.
Excellent. And that's a full-time position?
No, it's volunteer. And
it is volunteer, so
yeah,
it's not a paid position?
The board meets, the Constitution requires us to meet quarterly. Okay. We meet about monthly.
Okay. And what kind of things does the Board of Education do? What is your role in both as the chairman and the board itself?
Right. Well, the biggest things we do are the most perfunctory because of just the way the law is written. For example, we are the agency that certifies. The legislature passes the School Finance Act. We're the ones that implement it and certify that the dollars being spent, $2.5 billion, are being spent according to the formula. So we're the ones who actually count how many kids are in a school like this, how many kids are in districts, how many kids are eligible for different programs, what levels their funding is at. We do the calculations of the property tax offset for the incoming state tax. So we are the ones who take a very complicated formula and certify that the money's being spent as close to what the law requires. We hold every teacher's license in the state is held by the Colorado Department of Education and the State Board of Education. We hire the Commissioner of Education. He's the one agency head in the state of Colorado who does not work for the governor. He is the largest agency, and he works for the State Board of Education. We hire him, we fire him, we do his evaluations, we pay him. Charter schools. It's like whenever there is a difference of opinion between a charter school and the local district, their appeal remedy is to the State Board of Education. And so we receive a lot of those. Oh, going back to the teacher's licenses, if there's a disciplinary action, a license revocation, that is actually done by the Board of Education. We're the ones who do the background checks and are responsible ultimately for whether a teacher coming into Colorado or graduating, obtaining a license in the state is eligible to receive it. We go through, when you do the fingerprint background check, those records come to the Department of Education. We're ultimately responsible for whether you get a license to teach in Colorado. And again, everything's according to the law, so we don't do much legislation. And in fact, we don't, as opposed to my prior experiences, the State Board does not have a lot of policy-making authority. We have a little, but we don't have a lot of policy-making authority. Most of what we do is make the law work. Take the laws that legislators or the federal government has passed and certify that it's in Colorado it's being done properly.
Do you guys have any role in curriculum that's in the schools?
Yes, only by establishing minimum content standards, or content standards rather, and under Colorado's Constitution, curriculum, personnel, management are all in the domain of local districts. The influence that the state has is, again, legislature has to authorize the different provisions, but for example, with respect to content standards, the State Board of Education is the entity that sends the department staff throughout the state to determine, and throughout the state and throughout the country, in fact throughout the world, to look at where Colorado's standards are relative to other competitors, and those standards are then created. But there's no, they're minimum standards, they're guidelines, but the curriculum is adopted by the local districts. The accountability process is something, again, that the legislature passes by policy, the State Board implements. So to the extent that accountability ends up driving curriculum, it shouldn't work that way, but that's, of course, if you have a test, you're going to have districts, schools, and teachers who are going to amend their curriculum in order to do better on those standardized tests.
What role, if any, has the board or would the board have with the financial literacy standards like in the state of Colorado that just came about?
Have quite a lot of responsibility. Not day-to-day responsibility, but supervisory in terms of the overall process. For example, there are subcommittees that are being formed right now in response to the legislation that just passed and recently became effective in the state that are being formed. So the state board, for example, is very concerned about who's on those boards, whether we have people who are actually competent in the financial services themselves or curriculum development as well, math and economics, serving on these boards so that the ultimate recommendation that gets folded back into the curriculum guidelines are appropriate, that they fit in the right place. Because of some imperfections in the legislative process, the financial standards in Colorado are going to be a part of math standards as well as economics standards. So they won't stand alone, although we want to treat them as just as important as math, science, English, writing, and all the rest. It's just the legislature passed a law that doesn't allow for us to create it as a standalone, financial literacy as a standalone curriculum, but we're going to try to get around, we're going to try to compensate for that by making it those provisions that can be that can be assessed will go under, become folded into the math standards and assessments. Those that cannot will probably be in the economics portion of our model standards.
Okay.